Today, we're doing the second show in our series on friendship, the ultimate biohack. We'll be talking about building friendship at any age with a focus on teens. My guest is Libby Kiszner. She'll address the question of what does it mean to belong to yourself. Thank you for joining me today. I'm Madeline Blair, and this is Unlocked, a show all about unlocking the resilient leader in you. As always, I invite you to tell me how I'm doing and what you'd like me to do differently. Just send an email and tell me the topics you'd like to hear more about or whatever. Thank you so much. And if you're watching on YouTube, please click the like button and subscribe, and better yet, make a comment. I will respond. Our young people struggle in a world filled with communication options, and they still feel alone. And in this episode, we explore how calm and confidence come from belonging to yourself. I hope you're as excited about what that means as I am. We're going to talk about why self-reliance actually deepens generosity, how personal stories become universal bridges. And lastly, practical ways to turn your authentic insights into community-building communication. My guest today is Libby Kiszner. She's an author, ghostwriter, and author coach who helps visionary leaders transform their expertise into authentic communication that creates meaningful connection. She is the author of Dear Libby, Will You Answer My Questions About Friendship? A book that explores how authentic self-expression builds lasting relationships. She previously wrote the widely read Dear Libby advice column for Mishpacha and Mishpacha magazines, where she responded to readers' heartfelt questions with honesty and care. Today, she contributes regularly to Ami magazine, sharing stories and essays that bridge personal truth with universal connection. And let me bring on Libby. Libby, welcome to Unlocked.
Thank you, Madeline. It's lovely to be here.
Oh, it's great to have you. It really is. Well, I tell you, before we get into anything, I have to tell people this woman is going to be talking about teenagers because she really understands teenagers from many dimensions. She's the mother of 9, and she just had a new grandchild born. So congratulations to you, Libby.
Thank you.
Okay, well, let's get into the nuts and bolts, or maybe before then. I'm curious. You received thousands of letters from teens when you wrote Dear Libby. What did you see in those enquiries? What made them different from the person with more years, so to speak? And do you see this in teens still?
The letters were all very human, asking human questions. We all want to be seen, to be loved, to be expressed. The letters were from teenagers, sometimes adults. They were looking for answers on what will help me feel safe. How can I belong? How can I make a difference? And the questions may be differently packaged, but that's what they were all about.
Oh, I love that teenagers are also interested in making a difference.
Yes.
We sometimes don't see that in them because this is the time of their life where they're forming themselves. Yeah, that's fabulous. Anything else about that before we move on?
I think what do we all long for, whether it's a teenager or an adult? We want to be happy. We want to be content. We want to have peace of mind. And all the teens writing to me were really saying, can you make me feel safe? Can you help me feel good enough about myself calm, confident, so that I can make friends and never feel lonely and always be loved and be visible. And is this really possible? While I can offer some soothing words and some understanding and sometimes a practical tip or ideas to think about, nobody can be another person's source of calm.
Amen to that one. Well, teenagers live in a world of change. I mean, from the technology they use to the fact that their very bodies are changing, both visibly and invisibly. Being calm, you mentioned that, in all of us is a challenge. Given that, one of the things I really appreciate is that you write that calm doesn't come from other people, but from within. And how did you first discover that inner calm could be cultivated? And why is that discovery so unsettling at first?
Uh, I think we all want to, since we're little, we're sort of accustomed to the idea that we have parents, we have adults, and that they're here for us. Especially as children, we feel like we're the center of the universe and everyone is here to serve us, which is good when we're children. But as we grow into adulthood, then first of all, we realize that nobody's there for you forever. People are limited, people are fallible. Um, and then it can be scary to live like that unless we find it within ourselves to be the ones who can generate our own calm.
So, how do we generate that calm?
Um, one of the things that I would do in my book, and I actually wrote this introduction to my book, is that anyone who approaches this book with the idea that Libby has the answers, that she can show you how to fix your friendship issues in an overnight get best friends quick scheme, will be disappointed, because this isn't a book about answers, it's a book about questions. And questions are beautiful. They take us on a journey to explore different options, experience new things. There is no such a thing as the answer. Expecting for someone to have the answer is a way we try, an illusion that we have to try to get rid of the uncertainty. But every situation is different and every person is different, and the same person in a different situation needs a different answer. So, what I could do was invite readers into the discussion and help them explore principles, whether it's friendship or calmness, and notice different approaches and recognize the struggles, and to learn to engage with those difficulties instead of running from them. So, a personal question is like a personal story. It carries a universal message, and it allows you to see and feel and experience another person's world. When teens would write questions, other teens could identify with them and in it find themselves. But the unsettling part is that your parents can't protect you from everything, and the friend that you counted on lets you down. And it's not because they're bad people, it's because we're human and we have our own struggles and our own fears and our own limitations. So you're faced with this terrifying realization: I'm ultimately alone in here, and no one can live my life for me. No one can breathe for me. No one can feel my feelings or be present in my body. And so to learn to become the body who can be the source of my own calmness, it's a journey, and it happens with little steps.
I love that idea of that you're a separate body. And that's part of what teens do is they discover that they're, I mean, 2-year-olds discover they're a separate body from their mother, but as teens they discover they have an identity of themselves. And I love the fact that you do it through questions, because then you're right. You don't have the answers. The person themselves has to really think about it. I love that. because you sometimes discover, when you ask yourself a question, you sometimes discover unexpected things when you really take the time to probe yourself.
Yes. And especially for teens, they, even though they want to come to us for advice and support, they're not very interested in our answers and in our solutions. We can guide them to come up with their own, and we have to be very wise about how we introduce our ideas. And letting them discover for themselves is a big gift that we can give them.
Mm. There's another thing that you say, and that you said that self-reliance actually enables generosity. How, how does being our own source of calm and being more self-reliant make us more open and compassionate?
That's such a meaningful question. I actually asked my daughter this today, and she said something so simple and wise. People are going to come and go, she says. You're the only one you'll be with for your whole life. So either you make friends with yourself or you fight with yourself. And so belonging to yourself begins there in the willingness to be with yourself fully, the good, the bad, the light, the shadow, the parts you like, the parts you don't, and to become an observer of your life as well as the participant in your life.
Mm,
And what helps people start to belong to themselves in an anchored way in moments of just pause, feel. What are you feeling? I always ask my children, what are you feeling? And where do you feel that? And can you feel your breath? Can you notice your body? Can you remind myself? Can you remind yourself, this is me? This is who I'm going to be with for the rest of my life. And once you find yourself and your inner world, what's going on inside of you, you always know where to go back when things get uncomfortable. It's kind of like knowing where your home is. When you know what goes on inside, you learn about seeing another human being, first you and then others. When you become aware of your breath, you sort of become aware of your aliveness and you become aware of something that's beyond this life, of your own life. I mean, that there is life all around you. And just like you're breathing, there's this aliveness in all humans and in all creatures. So, love is the love of aliveness. And love wants to nurture that aliveness, it cherishes life. And when you sense it in yourself, you're aware of it in yourself, you're also aware of it in someone else.
you've described something in totally different words than I've heard it from other people. So thank you for new language around this word love. Yeah. And as you were talking, I was reminded myself that my work in resilience shows that people who understand who they are more resilient. And I always say this because you know what you bring to the table. You know something about yourself that other people or other events don't have to push you over. You're because you know who you are. That's great. And through questions, then you know the answers are coming from you. And you don't have to judge them. Oh, great. Well, in your advice writing, how did you help teens move from seeking approval to expressing genuine kindness, both to themselves and others? And I think you've hinted at that so far.
In the writing, it was always first about understanding them.
Mm-hmm.
So it's reading between the lines, mirroring back to them what might be the question behind the question. What are they really experiencing? Because teens or even adults, we could write one thing, but often what we're asking is something deeper. So if they write, how do I make friends? But what they're really asking is, how do I feel safe? How do I know that I matter? How do I feel confident? How do I feel calm about this whole issue about friendship and relationship. And once I could reflect that back, it sounds like you're feeling really alone right now because of the story that they are sharing. They can start to see themselves and to recognize what they're actually experiencing. But I think what's important to understand is that teens' brains aren't fully developed yet. The part of the brain that helps you self regulate, that lets you step back and observe yourself, that helps you calm yourself down, the prefrontal cortex, it doesn't fully mature until you're in your mid 20s. So, meanwhile, the emotional centers of their brains are firing in full intensity, and they feel everything more intensely than adults do. And the social parts of their brains are hyper tuned. Do people like me? Am I accepted? Am I safe in this group? And if I see people talking, are they talking about me? So, when I'm writing to teens about belonging to themselves, I'm not asking them to do something that comes naturally. I'm helping them start building the neural pathways they'll need for the rest of their lives. And that's why I'm also working on a book for parents called The Color of Calm, a parent's guide to helping teens understand and regulate emotions. Because at that age, teenagers still need the support of adults. They need someone to help them feel safe and connected. They need a calm, loving presence that they can lean on and model for themselves. We can't expect them to do this alone, but we can give them the tools and support to start the work of learning how to be there for themselves.
Such wise advice and observation. Oftentimes when I talk with parents or managers who have to manage teenagers, I often hear, "Well, they're adults, aren't they?" And I keep saying, "No, they're not adults. They're just big like adults. They look on the outside like an adult, but you're right. They're not there. They're not. Everything isn't finished. All the creation." Hmm. And helping them. I'm really looking forward to the book, by the way, your new book, then, because parents really are the source of the training. I mean, that's the first. I mean, you're obviously going to get it from your community as well, but the first is from the parents. And if you don't know how to do it, then it's harder. Well, let me ask you how you perceived now you just talked to teens. Right? Let me back up on that. People would send you Dear Libby questions. Did you ever get examples of when they would come back to you and say, "Well, I did such and such, and it was right on," or "You missed this"? Did you get any reactions like that?
I would get a lot of fan mail. Also, I think what was most meaningful was when they would say, "You answered so and so's question, and I have something similar."
Ah, so that's great. Is there an example of one question that really surprised you?
Um, I don't think that anything in particular surprised me. I think they were all very meaningful human questions. They were often the same questions, but in different, expressed differently.
Hmm.
And I have this sort of blank mind. So it could be a blessing and it could be a challenge. But every time I saw a question, it would trigger something completely new and fresh. And I could get the same question again and again and always come up with a different understanding.
Ah, interesting. One of the things I love about doing this show is I get to talk to people like you, and it's just always a different perspective. And I'm thinking to myself, "Gee, should I do a Dear Madeline poem just to hear those different kinds of questions and perceptions from people?" I don't know. I have to think about that one. That's a real commitment.
Yes, you're right. I think questions are very fascinating.
Yeah.
They lead us on journeys.
Yeah. I also gather from what you said that clearly the teens were responding. They understood what you were saying.
Yes, I remember someone from London telling me that their school had put on a play, and one of the characters was struggling with with emotions, and particularly around friendship. And at one point, the character said, "I'm going to write a letter to dear Libby." And someone else once wrote to me that dear Libby has become a household name, that teachers were even giving it as an assignment, write a letter to dear Libby. Gave students a way to express what they couldn't quite say out loud. There was this, because it offered anonymity, teens
Right.
could open up about things that weighed on them, and those letters often sparked meaningful parent child and teacher student conversations.
Yes.
So readers would see a question, identify with it, and even try to come up with their own answers before reading mine.
Yeah. You know, I'm thinking about it as a teacher. You could actually use this as an exercise in your class that people would write anonymously, of course. This is, if I were writing to Dear Libby, it would be this question. And then the class itself could talk about those questions. Yeah,
Yes,
because
that's what you,
it allows them to step into another persona. Yeah,
yes. And to have that distance between sometimes intense feelings and look at it as an observer.
yeah. Hmm. Which goes back to your point about the fact that teenagers really do feel more differently, or deeper, I should say, deeper. Yeah,
Maybe intensely.
intensely, right? I, as you were saying that, I was thinking to myself, oh my goodness, I can remember that. And I'm so glad I don't have to deal with that now because it's intense. It is intense. Hmm.
Yes.
Well, I wanted to also talk about the aspect of storytelling, and answering the questions really becomes a story. Statistics tells us that we're having an epidemic of teen suicide here, certainly here in the US. I won't speak to your country, but something in their lives kind of snuffed out their resilience. And one of the things that is needed to be resilient is to have social support, community that has their back. You talk about using story to build community, and you often say the more personal your story, the more universal its reach. Can you share an example from Dear Libby where a deeply personal exchange touched a wide audience?
I think many of I shouldn't say all, but many of the questions throughout the years, because the questions were real, people, writers, the ones who wrote the questions, felt safe to be open and share their real feelings. That's why it touched a chord. And it was a very popular column because it was the teens or the children writing their real honest questions. And when we go deeper into our real honest questions, it's like those babushkas, those Russian nesting
Yeah.
dolls. And the deeper you go, there's another one inside and another one inside and another one inside. And instead of having that little tiny doll at the bottom of it, it's really the large world, the universal, because each of us is human. And when we can contact or connect with the deepest part of ourselves, it's the deepest part of everyone else. And in storytelling, when we get really honest with ourselves and our feelings, that's when we can write best. So when we're in contact with what's really going on inside, not the head, not the mind, but in our bodies, in our senses, and we write from there, people connect. It resonates.
Oftentimes people will say, not the head, but connect with the heart. But I like that you said the body, because you're right. We feel a story somewhere in our body. If And when we can do that, yes, you're right. We can write a better story simply because it's coming from a deeper well of information.
What do you think, Madeline? Sometimes, like, when did it happen that we lost touch with our bodies, that we became all mind and all thinking? And
Oh, that's a wonderful question, Libby. I, I'm not sure I know exactly. Well, for sure, I don't know exactly. But there are certainly things that were valued, say, in the Middle Ages, where they valued books because the writing was written down and, this was the great wisdom that you were getting from it. Maybe it started when we started writing. Maybe that's when it started. When we wrote things down and they assumed a value because it was part of your wisdom. I don't know. Libby, does that make sense?
I think so, because there is the part of us that's writing. Like, there is, I know that the idea of left brain and right brain has been debunked, that all parts of our brains do everything else. And I don't know. But I do know that the logical part of us is language,
Yes.
much of what AI can do.
Yeah.
And there's another part of us that's experience. And when we start putting words to experience, then we lose the experience in many ways and move into the language and we disconnect. And body is experience. When we can sense our bodies, when we can sense our existence, just by being here, my body is here, I'm taking up space, then we can offer ourselves that loving presence that we look for in the outer world.
Yeah. It reminds me of, I know this is going to sound disconnected, but I think I can pull it together to show you that it does connect. The Japanese speak of forest bathing, where they go out into a forest and they just be in the forest. And, I'm sitting here and I'm feeling a great strangeness in my whole body as I say that. Not a bad strangeness, because I happen to love trees. And I know that when I'm with a great tree, I feel different. And there's no words I can put on it.
That makes total sense. 2 months ago, I said to my children, I need to go speak to the trees. I had to go to the forest. I had to feel the aliveness all around me and feel that tree energy, grounded, rooted, reaching up to the sky, offering shade, offering fruit. I love the energy of the tree.
I love this. And I knew we connected when we first met, but now I'm seeing there's many, many ways in which we connect. Thank you, Libby. All right. Well, you're a writing coach also, and you talk about using writing to build bridges. For those who don't see themselves as writers, what's one simple practice to begin expressing their story with honesty and courage?
That's a great question. And I'd say start with something very small. Take a few quiet moments at the end of the day and write one sentence that would begin with, "Today I noticed." Could be something you felt,
Yeah.
something you observed, something that surprised you. And it's not about writing beautifully, but to notice truthfully. That simple act of noticing without judgment, it begins to open up that bridge between your inner world and the outer one, between experience and logic. If experience would be the right brain and logic would be the left brain, we'd start connecting and give words to our experience. There's an old story from Krakow that I love. There was a poor man named Isaac, and he dreamed there was a treasure buried under a bridge in Prague. So he traveled by foot all the way from Krakow to Prague, only to learn from a guard that the treasure was actually beneath his own stove at home. The guard said, "What are you doing here?" And he said, "Well, I had the dream that there is a treasure buried here." And the guard laughed and said, "That's why you came all the way from Prague?" "Well, I had a dream that under Isaac's stove in Prague, there was a treasure buried there." And he ran home and found the treasure in his own home, in this oven at home. So that's what writing does. It brings you home to what already is within you and helps you find the treasure inside of you. When you put words to your inner life, you realize that it's been waiting there for you all along. And so, even if you don't consider yourself a writer, we all like to express ourselves and we become our own first reader. And it's a great way to observe yourself, to pause, to connect the two. Writing does so much in every way.
I particularly appreciate the simplicity of the opening. Today I noticed. Because often when you say to people, oh, you should journal or you should write a story, or in a way they get nervous that they don't know how to do it. But if you just say, well, today, what did you notice? That's easy. I can do this. I can do this. And so you begin doing it. Yeah.
Or
Nice.
I believe, if you have something to say, I believe. Some of us, sometimes we read something that resonates with us, and to put that into words and say, this is what I believe. So I notice, I believe, I think, I feel, and put them into words, articulate your experience.
Well, another aspect of your work I know is using writing to build community. And of course, to me, that's huge because, again, to be resilient, you really need a community to support you. Um, and now that community may be one person, or it may be 20 people, or it may be 100 people. But, but the idea of how can you turn authentic writing into something that actually builds community?
The interesting thing is that while it builds community, it starts inside. It starts with individual. And there is a vitality in each of us that's completely unique. And it keeps changing and deepening and expanding. Everything about the way you speak, you listen, you move, everything that you create is part of that expression. And when you allow that vitality to move through you in writing, in art, in business, in the way you do anything, your way you parent, life itself collaborates with you. It becomes this mutual expression, life expressing through you and you through life. And kindred spirits come and feel it and experience it with you and enjoy it. But it all starts with you enjoying it. And that attracts others who enjoy that as well. And that's how you start building connections and community.
And it all starts with you enjoying. I love
Yeah.
that. Joy has that capacity to it's like a spark, and it touches people, and sometimes it sparks into flame there as well. Yeah.
I've often thought about joy and happiness. What's the difference between happiness and joy? And one definition I give myself is that happiness is that feeling of calm that we started out speaking about.
Mhm.
It's when we feel calm, content, comfortable in our own skin. That's happiness, wouldn't you say?
I feel comfortable with that definition. Yeah.
So people sometimes we don't understand what happiness is. It's not like a jumping, you know,
Yeah.
dancing, fireworks happiness. It's that inner contentness and peace of mind, tranquility. And now, when that wants to be shared, that inner peace, that inner happiness wants to be shared, it turns into joy. That's why
Oh,
we dance in joy and we sing in joy. It's that expression of the inner happiness.
is there music behind you?
My phone is ringing.
This is interesting. Joy is happiness in motion. It's,
It's an
it's,
expression. It's
yeah,
happiness expressed.
yeah,
We want to share it.
yeah,
It's okay to have the happiness, inner peace, and it's
yeah, yeah.
wonderful and it's great. But when we want to share that, it turns into a joy.
Well, as you're saying this, I'm thinking to myself, oh, I'm happy a lot of times because to me, life is wonderful. But every now and then I just, it sort of, it bubbles and I want to share it with somebody. And that, you're right. I feel really joyful about it. Yeah. Mm, nice
It's
distinction.
shared, a shared joy, a shared happiness, a shared expression.
Yeah. Yeah. Mm. Okay. Now for the challenge. Let's bring this to teenagers. Can we get them to use writing to touch these kinds of things we've been talking about?
I think writing first helps you discover what's in your own mind, and it's important for teenagers to know. We're not writing for the world. I still have my journals. When I was a teenager, I used to write what I noticed and what I felt. Because I had those intense emotions as a teenager, I would take pen and paper and start to just put it down on paper. Uh, Putting words together brings a certain cohesion together.
Mm.
So I think writing first helps you discover what's in your own mind.
Mhm.
And it's fascinating to look back and see it, see what you're thinking, what you're feeling, what matters to you, what you struggle with. Sometimes you can put it away for a few years and look back, and it's so interesting to see where you are. Um, when you write, you begin to understand yourself better, and you build a friendship with yourself first. You
Yeah.
become your first reader. So, writing is a way to listen to yourself. So then you can truly listen to someone else.
So writing is a way to better observe and listen to yourself. And therefore, you build the skills to observe and listen to other people. Interesting. I like that. I like that. Okay. When I was growing up as a teenager, I never wrote. It was not what I did. I was I would draw, I would paint, and I would walk. And that was how I and so words are they're always a struggle for me.
It's
Even
very,
to this day, they're a struggle. Yeah.
there are different ways that we express ourselves, different ways to communicate, and we can say a lot in the way we draw and the way we cook. I
Yeah.
remember my mother used to knit sweaters, and it's a sort of it's a form of communication.
Yeah.
It's also an expression. It doesn't have to be writing. Writing
Mhm.
is my particular form, but everybody has theirs.
Yeah. I love the fact that you included cooking because I have often said the English language is bereft because even though it's one of the has the most words in it, I think, of any language, it misses one word. And that's the word that describes the joy that a cook gets when you watch people eating your food and enjoying it. And it's something I love to do, just watch people eat my food. But it's no word in English.
There is no word in English, and it's an exquisite joy.
It is. I mean, you go through a lot of work to get that little piece of joy.
Yes, you do. And the same is with writing or with drawing. You
Yeah,
go
yeah,
through a lot of work
yeah.
to entertain people, to give something. And then it's not just about the person eating the food, but what it does for you. It's
Yes,
reciprocal.
reciprocal. Yeah. Well, you know, I, in this aspect of community building, writing, observing, technology sometimes can play a good role, amplifying an authentic voice. But talk a little bit about technology and what you see its potential role. Let's focus on positive roles for the moment.
I think technology can either distance us or bring us closer. It really depends on how we use it. A fire can burn down a house or it can help cook a beautiful meal. The difference is the intention. It's the same with technology. When we use it with awareness, it becomes a tool for connection, not distraction. Look at us right now. We're connecting to technology in a meaningful way. When words come from sincerity, people can feel that, even through a screen. And we don't necessarily have to lose our humanity when we stay anchored in our bodies, in in our truth. So technology can become the bridge.
Mm. I like what you just said. The sincerity is even conveyed through the technology. It is felt and appreciated even across the screen, which is very consistent with my experience. I mean, I've worked with people all over the world, and some of those people I never met face to face for years. But when I met them face to face, it was as if we had always known each other face to face. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Well, another question that comes to this relates to this is a lot of my listeners lead teams, and maybe they mentor others. How can they turn their lived insights into small, shareable content that still feels personal?
There's this joy in creating cohesion through words, because in the process of putting words together, you bring yourself together. And every writer draws from three circles. The first is the inner circle, where you have yourself. What are you feeling? What are you noticing about yourself? What are you thinking? What are your experiences in life? And that's the first circle. And as we learn to be there for ourselves within that first circle, it becomes your awareness and you in that circle. And then the second circle is family, close relationships, loyal friends. And the third is the outer world. And writing moves through these circles. You write first from the inner circle, and you write for the inner circle, for yourself, to discover what you have to say. Then you share it with those closest to you, those who you know it will resonate with, and then with the larger world. Some people will resonate, others won't, and that's okay. Our stories can't reach everyone, but they always add to the shared human narrative. And I think creativity really begins with curiosity, with asking, what am I wondering about right now? What's on my mind? What would I like to know? And writing is another way of asking these questions and of living with these questions. When you follow your curiosity and stay honest in each circle, your writing not only connects you to others, it connects you to yourself.
No question. All right. You obviously have teenagers and amongst your family. How do you work with them? And are there hints that someone who wants to start what you're doing, to, they feel intimidated at this point? What are some gentle steps to get them to achieving this?
Ask the question again. I didn't understand.
Well, it was a two-parter, so let me ask them as two questions. Um, I'd love to hear how you work with teenagers because you have your own teenagers. What are some things you've done that really helps them? Obviously, you're going to write a book about this too, and we'd love to hear a little what do we call them? Um, Teasers about people. Um, yeah, let's leave it at that. I think that's the best part of the question.
With my teens, I try to listen more than I speak. No, I tell myself nobody's interested in my opinion. They're still forming their own. And so I don't rush in with answers. I try to make space to let them hear their own thoughts out loud and to guide them to understand what they're thinking, what they're feeling, and so that they can start to trust their own voice. I do the same with my author coaching clients and with people I interview for the magazine I write. It's a lot of listening, just creating a space for another human being to be themselves and to listen with curiosity because they have so much wisdom. If we let them just express themselves, there's a lot of wisdom in the generation that comes after us. Even
Yes,
though there's a lot of wisdom in the generation that came before us, there's
yes,
also a certain kind of wisdom that children and teens have.
yes. I
And of
agree.
course,
Go ahead. Go ahead.
I don't always get it right. But every time I manage to stay present instead of reactive,
Mhm.
I feel that sense of connection strengthening.
Listening. Gosh, isn't it amazing how much comes back to that word listening? And it has been a pleasure listening to you, Libby, today. So,
Thank you. It's been a pleasure having this conversation with you.
oh, thank you so much. And let me just remind our audience that we're going to be putting some notes in the show notes so that you can get in touch with Libby if you're curious about more. And again, Libby, thank you so much.
Every now and then, there is something that changes how I think about the world. Grounds for Thought is a place where I talk about these moments so that you can explore the meaning for yourself.
After my conversation with Libby Lisner about the beautiful layers of friendship, I found myself thinking about how friendship itself is a conversation, one that teaches us, shapes us, and helps us see the world. It's sort of like a conversational path to wisdom. Albert Einstein once said, "The more I learn, the more I realize how much I don't know." Where do you find new information? When I was young, I would have said books. And as I look back, I realized that books were only one of many teachers in my life. It was from my grandparents that I learned that there was a world beyond the farm where I grew up. They came from a distant country and told stories of why and how they left. My parents talked about the conveniences they didn't have when they were young. And it's funny how you learn about what you have by listening to what others didn't have. Then there were the fields and the woods around the farm. I knew every tree and flower and creek, each one teaching me something about Mother Nature. The forest was a kind of friend, always ready for another quiet conversation. And I have friends who were wonderful about giving me feedback. I would never have seen all the implications of one option over another, for example. When I gather these memories together, I realize that so much of what I've learned has come through conversation, not just words spoken aloud, but the many forms that conversation can take. When my grandfather spoke, you could see his earnestness, and you knew he was telling the truth, and you learned the truth matters. And when my mother told us about her own mother making hot cocoa for each of her children, you could almost taste it, but it wasn't the cocoa itself. I learned that caring for others brings its own warmth. When I walked in the woods, it spoke to me in color and shape and smell, and I learned and still learn to listen with my nose, to sense when it has rained and when the garden needs watering. When my friends shared their secrets, I learned that being vulnerable isn't deadly. It's where trust begins. I remember once telling a teacher that reading a book couldn't be a conversation. And he smiled and said, "Oh, Madeline, you're in conversation with the author." From that day on, I began asking questions as I read, and I still do. It's my way of kind of keeping the dialogue alive. Today, I hold 3 degrees. I have hundreds of books in my library. I read online every day for hours. Yet when I open all my senses, my mind, my heart, my body, I don't see mountains of knowledge. I see only a soft, fuzzy edges of what I know. Edges that invite me to push a little farther, ask one more question, try one more thing. And the best learning adventures are when a friend joins the conversation. Maybe they've already walked part of the horizon and can guide me forward. Or maybe they'll simply encourage me to keep exploring. Friendship, after all, is one of the most enduring conversations we can have. One that keeps teaching us who we are and what matters most. Highly resilient people are constantly learning, and they're insatiably curious. Maybe that's because each new thing we learn gives us confidence that we can handle the next unknown. Knowledge helps us find the options we need to move through the unexpected. And perhaps the more I learn, the more I know that I can learn. Because as Einstein said, the more I learn, the more I realize how much I don't know. And my closing question to you is, when was the last time you told a friend how much you appreciated their presence in your life? I want to thank you for joining me today. I hope you've enjoyed the conversation and learned something new. I'm Madeline Blair, wishing you infinite possibilities as you unlock your resilient leader.